In the spring of 1847, workers renovating an aging estate on the outskirts of New Orleans uncovered something they were never meant to find. Beneath the slave quarters, buried deep in the damp Louisiana soil, were wooden boxes, 22 of them, carefully wrapped in rotting cloth and arranged as if someone had intended to return for them one day. When the lids were pried open, the men recoiled. Inside were hundreds of human teeth. Not animal teeth. Not medical specimens. Human teeth, pulled violently from living mouths. Molars, incisors, some still stained dark with old blood. A few were small, children's teeth. The discovery sent shockwaves through the property and quickly reached the ears of Thomas Wickham, a northern-born lawyer living in New Orleans. Wickham was not easily shaken. He had seen slavery up close and had documented its cruelties for years. But this was different. Teeth were not tools of labor. They served no economic purpose. Their presence suggested something far darker, something ritualistic, deliberate, psychological. The estate belonged to the Delacroix family, one of New Orleans' oldest and most respected Creole lineages. The property had been established in the late 18th century by Jean-Baptiste Delacroix, a man remembered publicly as a refined planter and businessman. Privately, he had been something else entirely. As Wickham began to investigate, the truth emerged slowly, reluctantly, through whispers, journals, and testimony that had been buried for decades, just like the boxes themselves. Jean-Baptiste Delacroix had believed that control over enslaved people required more than chains and whips. Physical punishment could break bodies, but it did not always break spirits. Escape, rebellion, resistance, these remained constant threats. Delacroix sought something deeper, control over belief itself. Through careful observation and consultation with physicians and fellow enslavers, he developed a system of psychological domination centered on superstition and fear. Enslaved people on his estate were told that their teeth contained part of their soul, their spiritual essence. To remove a tooth was to remove protection, identity, and freedom. Those who tried to escape after losing a tooth, they were told, would be tracked, cursed, or destroyed. The belief was reinforced through ceremony and terror. Teeth were extracted publicly, without anesthesia, often before an audience. Pain was intentional. Trauma was part of the lesson. The extracted teeth were preserved, catalogued, and stored, physical proof of ownership not just over bodies, but over souls. Delacroix documented everything. In a private journal spanning decades, he recorded names, dates, reactions, and outcomes. He noted how fear spread faster than force. How resistance declined. How obedience increased. Jean-Baptiste's son, Christophe Delacroix, buried the boxes. Partly out of shame. Partly to erase evidence of a failed experiment. And partly to protect the family name. For more than 20 years, the boxes remained hidden. Until 1847. As news of the discovery spread, Wickham began interviewing witnesses. Former enslaved people like Celeste Thibault came forward. She had been 12 years old when one of her teeth was taken. She described the pain, the fear, the belief that something essential had been stolen from her forever. Even decades later, the psychological wound remained. Dr. Henri Laveau, a respected physician, examined the boxes and confirmed what Wickham suspected. Many teeth showed signs of trauma consistent with extraction from living subjects. Some were infected. One appeared to belong to a child no older than 6. The evidence pointed to a system, not an isolated cruelty. That realization terrified powerful people. Many of New Orleans' elite families had known Jean-Baptiste Delacroix. Some had consulted him. Others had employed similar methods. Wickham's investigation threatened not just reputations, but fortunes. And so they mobilized. Anonymous letters appeared in newspapers attacking Wickham as a northern agitator stirring trouble in a city that handled its own affairs. Rumors spread about his personal life. His motives were questioned. Threats followed. One letter delivered to his office read plainly: "Leave New Orleans, Yankee, or you'll end up in the river." Wickham reported the threats. No investigation followed. He noticed he was being watched. His mail arrived opened, or not at all. Friends distanced themselves. Allies were pressured into silence. Father Antoine Blanc, a priest who had supported the investigation, received a visit from the Archbishop. He was advised to focus on pastoral duties and avoid controversy. The Church did not want to alienate wealthy parishioners. Dr. Lavo began losing patients, particularly from prominent families. His income fell. The message was clear: cooperation had consequences. Then, in late September 1847, disaster struck. A fire broke out at the warehouse where the boxes were stored. It began late at night. By the time volunteer firefighters arrived, the building was fully engulfed. The wooden structure burned to the ground. All 22 boxes were destroyed. Hundreds of teeth reduced to ash. The fire was ruled accidental. Wickham did not believe it. Only one piece of evidence survived: Jean-Baptiste Delacroix's journal, kept at Christophe's estate rather than turned over to authorities. Without the physical proof, the case weakened. Teeth were tangible, visceral. Without them, the story became easier to dismiss as exaggeration. But then, in October 1847, an unexpected witness came forward. Joseph Marchand, a notary with over 30 years of experience, approached Wickham privately. Marchand had handled legal affairs for many of New Orleans' most prominent families, including Jean-Baptiste Delacroix. Disturbed by the fire and the discovery, Marchand reviewed his old files. What he found was damning. He possessed correspondence from at least 15 plantation owners asking Jean-Baptiste about methods of psychological control. Some letters explicitly referenced tooth extraction. Others used coded language. Marchand also found payment records to Dr. Etienne Rousseau, the physician who had performed many of the extractions. The sums were enormous, far beyond normal medical fees. Wickham tracked down Rousseau's former assistant, Claude Fontaine, now an elderly apothecary. After weeks of persuasion, Fontaine agreed to testify. His account was chilling. Rousseau believed enslaved people were objects. He developed efficient extraction techniques using pliers and chisels. No anesthesia. Pain was part of the method. Fontaine witnessed hundreds of extractions. He also revealed the truth behind the practices and it failed. Enslaved people stopped believing. The fear dissolved. Armed with this testimony, Wickham compiled a comprehensive report. In November 1847, he presented it to the city council. Their response was swift. Nothing would be done. They acknowledged the practice as regrettable but insisted it belonged to a different era. Pursuing accountability would only cause division. The matter was closed. Wickham was furious. He published the full report in a Boston abolitionist newspaper under the headline, "The Teeth of Slavery, Psychological Torture in Louisiana." The story exploded nationally. Northern papers used it as evidence of slavery's moral corruption. Southern papers attacked Wickham, calling the story propaganda. Some claimed the teeth were animal remains. Others alleged conspiracy. In New Orleans, silence prevailed. Families closed ranks. Lawsuits were threatened but never filed. Christophe Delacroix became a pariah. His children were ostracized. He resigned from city council and sold the estate at a discount. The new owner demolished the slave quarters and plowed the land, attempting to erase the past. But history does not disappear so easily. Wickham returned to Boston in 1849, joining the Underground Railroad. Celeste Thibault lived into old age, still haunted by the loss of her tooth, relieved it was gone, yet mourning that part of herself forever lost. Jean-Baptiste Delacroix's journal vanished after the family relocated. Its fate remains unknown. Today, the estate lies within New Orleans' Garden District. No plaque marks what happened there. Occasionally, during construction, small cloth bundles are found. Sometimes containing what might be a tooth. They are quietly reburied. The tooth extraction practice faded from public memory, too disturbing to confront. Yet traces remain in archives, in testimonies, in forgotten journals. It stands as a reminder that slavery was not just physical domination, but psychological warfare. An assault on identity, belief, and spirit. The boxes contained teeth. But they represented something far more horrifying, the attempt to claim ownership of souls. That attempt failed. But the suffering it caused deserves to be remembered. Just when we think we know everything about history, stories like this remind us how much remains buried. If this story gave you chills, share it. Like, subscribe, and join us as we uncover the darkest secrets history tried to hide. Because the most terrifying horrors are not monsters or myths, but the things human beings have done to one another, and tried to forget.